Morning and good afternoon to my Chinese friends. I am Munazzir, Director, Bangladesh International Arbitration Center, BIAC. I welcome you all to our 10th webinar. Today's theme is using ADR clause to strengthen open account trading for imports and exports between China and Bangladesh. We are proud to organize this webinar jointly with International Investment and Trade Service Window of China Yunnan Pilot Free Trade Zone, China. I would now introduce our Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Rumee Ali, who has been with us since October 2015. Mr. Rumee Ali started his career with ANZ Greenless Bank in Bangladesh in 1975 after completing Masters in Economics from the University of Dhaka. A former Deputy Governor of Bangladesh Bank, Mr. Ali, was Chairman of BRAC Bank and CEO of Standard Chartered Bank, Bangladesh. Currently, he is also the Chairman of AB Bank Limited. I would request Mr. Ali to deliver his welcome address. Sir.
So you need to unmute yourself.
Sorry, I was muted. Good afternoon and good morning and welcome to all of you who are with us today for this first international seminar which is being jointly hosted by BIAC, Bangladesh International Arbitration Center, and International Investment and Trade Service Window of China Yunnan Pilot Free Trade Zone. Ms. Zhang Jingmei, Director of International Investment Trade Service Window of China Yunnan Pilot Free Trade Zone, Mr. Li Hu, Vice Chairman, China Maritime Arbitration Commission, Chairman of BIAC, Mr. Mahbubur Rahman, and all ladies and gentlemen present. We have with us also quite a few number of very good speakers who are experts in their own field. I just mentioned their name. We have with us Mr. Rizwan Rahman, who is the president of the Dhaka Chamber of Commerce, is a business leader of the country. We have Professor Li Peng, a legal advisor, First Yunnan Provincial Party Committee, Communist Party of China. We have Mr. Rahman, who is Secretary General of International Chamber of Commerce, Bangladesh. I must mention that ICC is at the forefront in introduction of what we'll be talking today, which is open account trade for in international trade. Mr. Geng Jiajun, Deputy General Manager, Minsha Bank Kunming. A banker is very important. And we do have two bankers over here. We also have Said Mahbubur Rahman, Managing Director and CEO of Mutual Trust Bank, Mr. Yaz Kyun, practicing lawyer, Anil Partners Kunming, and Ms. Jaharat Adib Chaudhary, Chief Legal Officer of and Company Secretary of Banglalink Digital Communications Limited, one of the largest mobile phone services in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's program. Just to start off, let me just mention that the bilateral trade between Bangladesh and China has seen exponential growth after it started in 1975 with only $3 million. Today, the volume has reached around $18.33 billion, which is a dramatic rise. At the same time, China has become the largest trading partner of Bangladesh, and Bangladesh is the second largest trading partner of China among the South Asian countries. So the trade volume of the two countries has remained at a phenomenal rate and grown at a phenomenal rate of 24.6% over the years. Ambassador Jingmei said China-Bangladesh economic cooperation has further consolidated under the Belt and Road Initiative which the two countries provide each other with goods services of excellent quality at a reasonable price and truly bring sense of gain to the two people. So as we expect, as the country, Bangladesh's GDP keeps growing and the trade volumes are increasing, we expect this to become larger and larger. However, there is a cost to the international trade when we do it through banks, particularly if we do through the usual LC-based trade, as we have been in Bangladesh and many countries. But there is a drive towards creating more efficiency in this whole system globally. And there is pressure on both the buyer, the exporter, and the importer to reduce cost in every possible way. So this is considered the new way out in reducing the cost. Many countries are opting for open account trade, which means you do not do it under an LC, but on an agreement between the two parties, the buyer and the seller. Here, the banker is involved in, as far as the document sharing of processing of the documents is involved. This works very well and has been seen to be slowly becoming the best practice globally. I would say in Bangladesh, particularly in the garment trade, which is our largest commodity, largest export item, a very large percentage of our trade has moved to open account. But on the other hand, import has not actually moved to the open account. Most of the import is being done through letters of credit. If we want real efficiency to come in, we need to move into open account trading on both sides of both on the export and the import side. But also, as this is growing, there's another issue which is coming up, and that is in the case of when we have a dispute between the buyer and the seller. Efficiency means that disputes between the buyer and the seller will also be settled properly, quickly, and efficiently. For that, you need a robust system. Although we have the system of international jurisdiction, you have international legal system to protect you. However, the problem over there is a thing about jurisdiction, particularly in international trade. This creates a complication. So it is much more efficient in open trade for the buyer and seller to agree on a set of rules and outside the judicial system under the ADR, which is Alternative Dispute Resolution. This is a very important thing that must be brought into the open trade system to strengthen this and make it more robust. Because as our trade increases and more commodities are being exchanged through the open account system, there will be disputes, and we need to prepare our system to be able to resolve this very important issue in an efficient way. So I'm not going to speak about this. I think the experts will know much better. They will be able to give us much better idea about what should be done to strengthen open account through the ADR system, ADR processes. So I'll leave here with, again, welcoming our partner from China, the International Trade Services Window of China and Yunnan, Pilot Free Trade Zone. This is, I think this is just the first beginning. I particularly thank the director, Ms. Zhang Jingmei, for coming and arranging this beginning of a cooperation between Bangladesh and China through through BIAC and this institution. I am sure we can help to strengthen not only the friendship between the two countries, but also the trade between two countries, and give and make a positive contribution in that area. So thank you very much. I must also thank our moderator, Mr. Munazzir Karim, the Executive Director and Country Operations Head of Standard Chartered Bank. Thank you very much for coming and doing this for us. And I must also thank Mr. Mahbubur, our chairman, who is always been very instrumental. He was instrumental in setting up BIAC and also is a constant support and inspiration for us at BIAC in taking it to new heights. And thank you, all of you, again, particularly our guests from China for being here and all the speakers over here who have given us the time. Thank you very much. I hope we have a very successful afternoon, evening, whatever it is in your part of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your guidance. I will now introduce Ms. Zhang Jingmei, who is the Director of Administrative Examination and Approval Bureau of Management Committee of Kunming Area State Level Kunming Economic and Technological Development Zone of China, Yunnan, Pilot Free Trade Zone. She has a master's degree. I will now request Ms. Zhang Jingmei to deliver a welcome address. Madam.
Hello? Yes. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Yeah. Dear Mr. Muhammad Ali, dear Mr. Lifu, dear all the speech guests, experts, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm Zhang Jingmei. I'm honored to represent the Administrative Examination and Approval Bureau of the Kunming Area FTZ. It is also the state-level Kunming Economic and Technological Development Zone of China. I'm honored to organize this webinar with BIAC together. I hope this conference will promote the friendship and cooperation between people from China and Bangladesh. I believe the cooperation of international arbitration will be strengthened. I'm glad to meet you all. At first, let me introduce Kunming City again. Kunming is a city that takes about 3 hours on flight from Kunming to Bangladesh. It is a city with spring all the year round, which is with good weather and excellent ecological environment. Kunming has rich ethnic traditional culture and a long history of Yunnan culture. And our city has multiple nature heritage. For example, the mountain, the lake, and the stone forest. It also has a unique food culture and minority customs. On behalf of FTZ Kunming, I warmly invited all the friends from Bangladesh to our city. I'm regrettable that we just communicated through the online meeting because of the COVID-19 pandemic. I hope that experts from Bangladesh can come to our city again. Second, I will introduce the FTZ Kunming. It was approved to be established by the State Council of China in August 2019. As we know, FTZ is a significant area of international economic cooperation and generally organized around major seaport, international airports, and national frontier area with many geographic advantages for trade. Kunming FTZ in Yunnan, China is established in the state-level economic and technological area, having an area of 76 square kilometers. Focus on the development of high-end manufacturing, aviation, logistics, digital economic, headquarters economy, and other industries. The development goal is to build a high standard and high quality free trade industry park. Administrative examination of approval bureau of state level economic and trade development zone in Kunming area was established in October 2020. On the one hand, it is very responsible for the management of government approval items and provides service for government approval items for entrepreneurs, establishment, and investment. For example, we provide service for the whole process for entrepreneurs entering Kunming Free Trade Zone. On the other hand, we also provide service and guidance for foreigners who come to China or Kunming to invest. Third, I'd like to introduce a very important role of us. Last year, for providing service for entrepreneurs, we have set up a service window, which we call IITSW, in the Comprehensive Service Center for Entrepreneurs entering Kunming Polite Trade Zone. There are preferential policies for some industries. All entrepreneurs can go to the window for consultation if they have some difficulties. And fourth, I hope through this meeting, it is helpful for everyone to know more information of international arbitration and its one's professional field. I hope that we can promote communication and friendship between the companies of both countries and make more and more people to understand more about BIAC. More people get guidance by the mediation of Bangladesh Arbitration Center. We are committed to promote the precision and the resolution of international trade disputes through arbitration and mediation. We will promote the development of international arbitration together. And I believe that through the promotion, more entrepreneurs and public can prevent and resolve disputes and understand each other better. By the end, I sincerely appreciate the domestic and foreign experts, the Bangladesh International Arbitration Center, and the foreign experts for their participation. Secondly, I'm also honored to invite Lifu and several other speech guests. I believe that today the webinar will be very successful with your guest participation. And now I'd like to play a video for you, all of you, to know more. Thank you.
We have a special guest who is Mr. Li Hu, the Vice Chairman of the China Maritime Arbitration Commission. He is a council member of the Court of Arbitration of Stockholm Chamber of Commerce, Sweden. He is also the committee member and Vice Chairman of Arbitration Committee, ADR Professional Committee of China International Chamber of Commerce, ICC. I request Mr. Li Hu to say a few words.
So thank you, Mr. Akmi Hosn Eza, for your kind introduction. Dear Mr. Muhammad Ali, Mrs. Zhang Jingmei, Mr. Obama Rahman, dear guests, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm very happy to see some words in today's significant webinar. Let's look at the whole picture of international dispute resolution. In general, the cross-border disputes as mentioned by Mr. Ali inevitably involved with different legal systems, different rules of law, both procedural and substantive. The parties may, in the first place, seek to prevent disputes. The dispute prevention is not to be chosen as a priority by the parties. As we know, along with the coming into force of the Singapore Convention on Mediation, the settlement agreement from the international mediation can be enforced in the convention states in the future. So the future of the ADR is promising in that the convention has enabled possible the parallel development of mediation, arbitration, and litigation. However, in my mind, arbitration is still going to be adopted as the main dispute resolution mechanism. Mediation results in the settlement agreement, which is a compromise between the both parties. Arbitration should be conducted strictly according to applicable arbitration rules and the special agreement of the parties, and end with the final award of the arbitrator. The role of the arbitrator's award cannot be replaced by the parties' settlement agreement, and therefore the arbitration cannot be overridden by the mediation. The arbitration has its own special value in dispute resolution. For the parties, let me firstly do the best to prevent disputes. For the resolution of domestic or local disputes, they may consider local litigation for the convenience of enforcement of judgment. For cross-border dispute, arbitration or mediation is proposed to be adopted for the overseas enforcement of the award or settlement agreement. The parties may decide to choose arbitration or mediation upon the differences and advantages of them, considering specific circumstances of their case. Alternatively, the parties may also choose have mediation first, followed by arbitration according to arbitration clause in the settlement agreement. The China Maritime Arbitration Commission (Shehmat) was founded in 1956 and the only one professional arbitration institution in China specializing in maritime and other commercial disputes by the means of arbitration, mediation, and online dispute resolution, including online arbitration. Shehmat has accepted 354 cases, including 113 international ones, since 2018. In the past few years, the relevant efforts have been undertaken by Shehmat to perfect arbitration under the framework of the One Belt, One Road initiative. We are widely strengthening cooperation with international national ADR institutions, actively exploring and promoting to establish bilateral and multilateral dispute resolution platform by which the listed institutions may promote together while providing their ADR services respectively if and when chosen by the parties. In the meantime, our panel of arbitrators were updated in 2017 to include more and more foreign arbitrators and arbitrators from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan for the convenience of foreign parties. And the arbitration rules were amended once again in 2018 to adopt best practice in international arbitration. All of these measures in return gave a push for Shehmat's further internationalization. As you know, in order to formulate a flexible ADR mechanism and better serve the batch enrolled initiative, the Chinese Supreme People's Court has adopted two Chinese International Commercial Courts in Shenzhen of Guangdong Province and Xi'an Shanxi Province respectively, and one International Council for Commercial Experts. According to the CICC rules of procedure, which has come into force since 5th December 2018, Chinese SPC has included Shehmat in the SPC's panel of arbitration conciliation institutions, so that for the relevant international arbitrations conducted by Shehmat, the parties may enjoy direct support from the SPC for reviewing jurisdiction, granting interim measures, and setting aside or enforcing awards. This will both demonstrate and enhance Shehmat's credibility. The conduct of international arbitration is likely to be very different following COVID-19 pandemic. The use of virtual hearings of one kind or another is bound to continue. The major international arbitration institutions give a wide discretion to arbitrators as to how an arbitration is to be conducted. CYPFTZ, in addition to pure online arbitration, has also formulated the guidelines for virtual oral hearings in arbitration. The arbitration procedures are therefore already available for the conduct of virtual hearings. Undoubtedly, ADR, including arbitration and mediation aid, compared with litigation, more appropriate to resolve import-export disputes, including ones arising from open account trading between Bangladesh and China. We're happy to see that BIAC is very active in resolving such kind of disputes. We may cooperate to do something more to strengthen the use of ADR in this field so that parties may choose the ADR services of BIAC and CYPFTZ in the import and export businesses. The common efforts may be undertaken to promote the popular use of ADR in cross-border disputes between our two countries. Finally, I wish today's webinar a great success. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. You wanted to show a video. You may now show that.
Okay, thank you.
Please, please.
中国云南自由贸易试验区昆明片区行政审批局在服务中心新增国际投资贸易服务引导窗口，面向南亚、东南亚国际国内双向提供投资贸易服务引导。目前正与缅甸、孟加拉、马来西亚、泰国、印度等国家相关机构人员进行洽谈。各方均对窗口的设立及运行表达了极大的关注和期待。国际投资贸易服务引导窗口作为面向南亚、东南亚等国家投资贸易提供综合性、专业性引导服务的窗口，政府搭桥，专家解题，致力于从需求出发，创新国际国内昆明本地线上线下3合1服务模式，针对各个专业领域引入国际国内本地的专家，对标国际标准，为境外企业和客商提供准入、金融、税收、物流等投资及贸易解题式服务，引导投资贸易项目在自贸区落地开发。国际投资贸易服务引导窗口在自贸区昆明片区行政审批上市联结服务的基础上，接收投资和贸易方各类投资贸易需求，提供问题解决方案，跟踪服务绩效，以专业为基础促进发展，促进与南亚、东南亚合作机构的合作，共同举办多方面专场政策节目和服务引导的宣传推广活动，以需求为导向，共促合作。我们将致力于创新合作模式和严格风险管理机制，促进国际投资贸易服务引导窗口不断迈出 际投资贸易服务引导窗口将对抗国际要求，以更加开放、包容、超前的服务理念，助力中国人南自贸区昆明地区打造提升国际化、法治化、便利化营商环境。
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to hand over the session to our moderator. I would introduce our moderator, Mr. Munazzir Shehmat Karim, who is the Executive Director, Country Operations of the Standard Chartered Bank, Bangladesh. He also worked for IDLC Finance. In his long banking career of 2 decades, he held various senior management positions in Standard Chartered Bank, including Head of Wholesale Banking, Cash Management and Trade Operations, Head of Program and Change Management for Bangladesh, and Regional Head of Governance, Risk and Controls for Africa, Middle East and Pakistan, based in Dubai, UAE. I would request Mr. Karim to moderate the rest of the session. Mr. Karim.
Thank you very much, Mr. Azad. I hope I'm audible, right?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. A very good afternoon to all of you and the participants. I think we are both China and Bangladesh is on the afternoon side of business. So I hope you have a good start of the session. So without further ado, as the BIAC Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Rumee Ali, and the special guest, Mr. Lee, who mentioned, the context of the discussion of this webinar is very, very relevant and very timely for 2 specific reasons. We all know how the Bangladesh growth aspiration moving into the middle income country in next few years time, and how as a whole for development of the economy, we are partnering with a country like China in terms of meeting that objective and taking us to the next level of our economic growth. So obviously it's the right time, enabling environment, which is going to help us hopefully to reach our target destination, and it should be a win-win scenario for both the countries. So with that, I would like to invite our 7 panelists. Mr. Rumee Ali has already given some background, but I'll just introduce our panelists here. So I will start off with no specific order. I'll start off with Mr. Rizwan Rahman. Mr. Rahman is a business leader of Bangladesh and the current president of Dhaka Chamber in Commerce and Industry, DCCI. He's the managing director of ETBL Securities and Exchange Limited, and also a director for Island Insurance Company and the Financial Express, which is one of the country's premier business daily. So Mr. Rizwan Rahman, welcome to the session. We have the next speaker, we have Mr. Ni Peng. Mr. Ni Peng is the legal advisor of the first Yunnan Provincial Party Committee of the Communist Party of China. He's also the vice president of Yunnan Law Society, chairman of the Teaching Steering Committee of the Law Specialty in Yunnan Province, and a member of Kunming Arbitration Committee and Dean of Law School for Yunnan University of Finance and Economics. So Mr. Ni Peng, very warm welcome to the panel. Our third speaker is Mr. Ataur Rahman, known to many of us as the Secretary General of Bangladesh Chamber and Commerce, Bangladesh. He was the managing director of Bangladesh Silk Foundation and worked with Bangladesh Institute of Development Studies, BIDS, and also an international organization named CIRDAP, Center for Integrated Rural Development for Asia and the Pacific. So, warm welcome to Mr. Rahman on the session. Our fourth speaker is Mr. Geng Jiajun, who is the Deputy General Manager of the Department of Institutional Finance of the Kunming branch of Minsheng Bank. He's an experienced banker with long-term work in the commercial banks related to the planning, finance, and investment banking. and also very proficient in the commercial banking management theory and practice prevailing across the industry. Our fifth speaker is a very well-known banking personality from Bangladesh, is Mr. Syed Mahbubur Rahman. Mr. Mahbubur Rahman is the Managing Director and CEO of Mutual Trust Bank, and he was also the CEO and MD of Dhaka Bank. He served as BRAC Bank CEO and MD earlier as well. Also, he is considered one of our industry leaders as he was elected chairman of the Association of Bankers of Bangladesh, ABB. So, Mr. Mahbubur Rahman, very warm welcome to you as well. Our sixth speaker is Mr. Zhang. Is a practicing lawyer of Anli Partners Kunming, and he's also the member of Asia Pacific Law Association in Hong Kong and supervisor of the postgraduate students of Yunnan Minzu University. Our seventh speaker, of course, last not the list, is Ms. Zehrat Adib Chaudhry. Ms. Chaudhry is Chief Legal Officer and Company Secretary of Banglalink Digital Communications Limited. She's a barrister at law from Lincoln in London. She served as head of legal of a number of top-tier multinational companies and advised several industries, including banking, pharmaceutical, IT, telecommunications, and FMCG in the country. So a very welcome to all of you. Just two or three housekeeping before we start off. We would request each of our panelists to have 6 to 7 minutes of discussions. There will be, once the panelist speakers have completed the discussions, there will be a question and answer, and there will be a wrap-up session. Any of the audience, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask questions then. You can also put in your question at the chat box. You will find it right next to the Zoom screen on the right-hand side under the More button. You can put up the question. I'll ask that question. Please mention who would like to ask the question first, and then we'll address that as well. So without further ado, I will request Mr. Rizwan Rahman to start the panel discussion. Mr. Rahman, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Munazzir Karim. Am I audible?
Absolutely, clear.
Thank you. Today's host, Mr. Mohammad Rumee Ali, the CEO of BIAC, and of course, Ms. Zhang Jingmei, Director of the IITSW of the China Yunnan Pilot FTZ. Special guest, Mr. Li Hu, Vice Chairman of the China Maritime Arbitration Commission. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished panelists, assalamu alaikum, and a very good afternoon to you. At the outset, I would like to take the opportunity to thank the host for organizing this very important event and, of course, inviting me to speak in this August gathering of speakers. So to start off, I would like to say that, of course, we know that the pandemic has brought an unprecedented challenges to the global economy, impacting the trade and investment flow. Despite the vulnerability of COVID-19, Bangladesh has registered 5.2% GDP growth in 2020. And while the global GDP has plunged into the negative, our experts have now gained the pre-COVID momentum. It is needless to mention that in the development journey of Bangladesh, China is the key and trusted partner. Bilateral relations between Dhaka and Beijing has reached a new height, underpinned by increasing trade, investment, connectivity, economic cooperation in different strategic areas. Today, China is the largest trading partner of Bangladesh, as our host today, Mr. Rumee Ali, already said. If you recall the fiscal year 2009-2010, Bangladesh's bilateral trade with China was only $4 billion. But 10 years down the line, we have surpassed $12 billion in the fiscal year 2019-2020. Now, China is the largest import source of Bangladesh, even though our exports to China is slightly lagging behind, which is only $600 million as opposed to the 11.5 billion from China last year that we imported. But good move from the Chinese government that they have allowed 97% of Bangladeshi products with duty-free, quota-free facility into the Chinese market. And this will definitely unlock new trading avenues for us. and especially increase the exports from Bangladesh to the Chinese market. Now, regarding this webinar today, I would like to discuss the state of the open account in Bangladesh. I think roughly 1% of the import transactions are executed through open accounts as a new form of trading. But open account is actually widely used in developing countries and developed countries. Now, open accounts introduction in international trade is a radical change in Bangladesh, considering the trade finance, which is the oxygen in business. Vietnam and China are actually taking huge advantage of open accounts in international trade. Now, of late, Bangladesh Bank has given a policy directive allowing exports on sales contract under the open account credit terms, which may enrich open account usage spree. Now, it is undeniable that the international trade transaction against LCs are more secured as traders remain protected against payment default. But the cost of doing business, international trade using LC is relatively high due to involvement of multiple processes, including banking and various other documentations. Now, even though open accounts we can consider somewhat less safe, but it is an attractive payment mode to the importers. That it is definitely less expensive than the LCs. Now, using alternative dispute resolution clause to strengthen the open account trading for imports and exports, we all know that open accounts have it is beneficial to importers in terms of cash flow and cost of trade transaction. On the other hand, it offers both advantages and commercial risk to exporters by increasing export competitiveness as well as triggering payment risk. Now, immense concentration on open accounts will actually help save the cost of doing business. Bilateral trade between China and Bangladesh has potentials to grow in the near future if this actually happens. And with higher commercial risk in open accounts compared to LC, there are chances of higher payment disputes in tandem with the growth of the account usage. Now, institutional ADR can actually play an important role to raise the confidence of exporters and importers engaged in an open account transaction by offering faster resolution for commercial disputes, including payment delays, payment default, breach of contractual obligations. Now, the role of BIAC. Dispute prevention and effective dispute resolution are crucial to mitigate risk. We all know, to raise credibility and the usage of these open account transactions. Inclusion of mandatory ADR clause in the contract will strengthen open account trade between China and Bangladesh. In this connection, the role of the banks of Bangladesh and China are extremely important as a protection means, and a directive from the central bank could be very effective. Now, if we move with this legacy, BIAC in association with various licensed ADR institutions in China can actually play a vital role to resolve this international trade disputes on open accounts. They can be referred as institutional mediators or arbitrators in this sort of dispute resolution. That would bring in dynamism in our trade relations in the near future. Needless to mention, Dhaka Chamber of Commerce and Industry will be at the full disposal of BIAC to make this initiative a grand success. And before wrapping up, I would once again like to thank you all for your patience, and also thank BIAC and the International Trade and International Investment and Trade Services Window of China, Yunnan FTZ, for organizing this timely discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rahman. I think it was quite insightful. If I quickly pick up some of the key points that you have covered in your discussion, is given the GDP growth and the China-Bangladesh business relationship, and the tariff discounts and the the privileges given, I think it's the right time to have this ADR and open account opportunities to be explored. Further, concentration on open accounts in this field would be useful from your perspective, as long as the regulatory framework would support that, and ADR clause will help reduce any foreseeable dispute between buyer and seller from your perspective. So thank you. I'll come back to you once I go to the once I finish all the panelists. I'll invite Mr. Ni Peng, our speaker, second speaker, to share his thoughts on this space. Mr. Ni Peng.
Good afternoon, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Nipeng from Yunnan University of Finance and Economy. My topic is analysis of dispute settlement mechanism regarding trade under LC. Here's my personal profile.
Mr. Peng, would you like to share any screen?
Yes. Okay.
My topic is analysis of dispute settlement mechanism regarding trade under LC. I'm Nipeng from Yunnan University of Finance and Economics. Here are my personal profile. According to importers, exporters, and indenture order 1981, all Bangladesh importers are subject to registration at CCI and E. The importer in Bangladesh, before importing of foreign goods, shall be authorized by relevant banks, namely the LCA. Here are the requirements of LCA in Bangladesh, as we know, just as we know. Payment by LC. Requirements and the time of shipment are special requirements. Negotiation. It has advantages such as simple procedure, flexible in form and application of law, time saving, labor saving, money saving, and the disadvantages. When both parties have severe conflicts of interest and serious differences, normally they can't reach a compromise through negotiation. In addition, even both parties reach an agreement through negotiation. If one party is unwilling to perform the agreement, the other party does not have the right of requesting compulsory execution. The grievance party have to procure other means to protest his or her own rights and interests. Then the litigation. it has full protection of legitimate rights and interests. 5. The result has the final legal effect with executive force. But the procedure is complicated and takes a long time. It requires a certain amount of energy and financial resources. It may also worsen the relationship between the two parties. The outcome also depends on the overall level of rule of law of the forum. Third, mediation. Its convenience, simplified framework of implementation. But the Singapore Mediation Convention entered into force on September the 12th. Too few states parties signed the convention. The convention currently has 53 signatories. 6 states have ratified the convention into force. And then the arbitration. Arbitration award shall be final and binding. Arbitration is based on full autonomy of the parties' will. International civil and commercial disputes often involve complex legal, economic, trade, and technical issues. The parties can appoint experts from all walks of life as arbitrators to hear the case. The principle of arbitration is not to hear or judge in public. After all, arbitration is not litigation. When the parties do not make good use of procedural rights, it is difficult for arbitration institutions and even the arbitration tribunal to take strong countermeasures. As commercial trade parties come from different countries or regions, they are not familiar with the codes and the laws of or regions. Meanwhile, considering the time and the geographical cost, the parties are more inclined to choose a more flexible and efficient arbitration mechanism to settle disputes. The New York Convention of 1958 has been widely accepted and recognized the international practice which ensure the smooth implementation of effective arbitral awards among parties and different states. Then my proposals. Choose partners carefully and resolutely reject any illegal or unreasonable demands from Bangladesh during the cooperation. Strengthen our awareness of risk control, regulate our trade activities strictly, and cooperate in complying with procedures. When Bangladesh side issuing LC, we should know the reputation of the issuing bank in advance. Do a good job of the LC review. Ensure that there are no short terms. The goods and the LC should be delivered at one time, avoiding partial delivery as far as possible. When signing a contract, try to ask the customer for a certain percentage of the advance payment. Establish legal consciousness soon in time when a problem arises. It's recommended to ensure export credit insurance for large export contracts. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peng, for your insightful discussion. And some of the proposals that you've made in terms of make the arbitration and dispute management in a more applicable manner. You talked about the country profile choice, choosing the right partners, export and imports, mostly from the LC perspective. So maybe from the open account perspective, how the scenario changes, or if there's anything, maybe we'd like to hear that more from our other speakers. So I will invite Mr. Ataur Rahman to say his views on the subject. Mr. Rahman, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rumee, for taking this initiative with the Kunming International Commercial Arbitration Service Center in organizing this very important webinar on open account trading for imports and exports between China and Bangladesh. This is a very timely initiative, as has been mentioned by the Dhaka Chamber President, Mr. Rahman, and Mr. Chairman, the CEO of Arbitration Center, Mr. Rumee, and also our predecessors. Mr. Rumee is also the chairman of the ICC Bangladesh Banking Commission. So he has highlighted a number of issues as a banker. And then Mr. Rizwan Rahman has also said, as a president of the chamber, what are the difficulties that we are going to have, or what are the problems, initiatives that we need to take. Just to recollect that with effect from July 1, 2020, 97% of exportable goods from Bangladesh to China are entitled to duty-free access, which means about 8,250 Bangladeshi products are eligible for this facility. We saw it recently, the Chinese ambassador in Bangladesh said that the total import of China is going to be $30 trillion in the next 15 years from the present $2 trillion. Now, between Bangladesh and China, trade is around 15 billion, as Rizwan said, and we are only exporting $800 million. So there is a huge prospect for Bangladesh to avail these facilities. Of course, for that, we need to diversify our export products. And it is estimated that if we can avail this facility in the next couple of, maybe within the next 10 years or so, Bangladesh's export to China should be around $25 billion. So because of the present COVID, the export has decreased a little bit, but it is picking up again. Now, coming to the open account system, to facilitate open account transactions, Bangladesh Bank issued foreign exchange circular number 25 on 30th June for this open account export transactions to facilitate this. But it is still too early to say that within the 6 months, what are the impact of this open account system. But mind you one thing, this open account is only, as of now, is only for the export, not for import. So in case in the future, maybe the central bank should think of allowing the import also on the open account system so that our importers can also get benefited. The main features of this open account is export on credit terms with transport documents consigned directly to the importers, payment undertaking, payment risk coverage from external sources, electronic presentation of documents, early payment option on non-recourse basis up to appropriate extent, flexibility options for early payment like under payable financing arrangement from external sources, under receivable financing management from internal sources, financing through FCI path without FCI path. So FCI is another important factor that for the open account to ensure that the exporter gets the payment. Of course, the cost to exports will be LIBOR plus 3.5% annually, excluding normal banking charges. Now, I understand from our banker colleagues that as of now, the importers or exporters, before they open the agency, they already signed the contracts. So if they sign the contract and then they come to the bank without the provision of ADR, then when the dispute comes, nothing can be done. So we feel that this banks, chambers, and even the central bank should insist upon the importer and exporter to keep the provision of ADR and mediation in their contract. And whenever the client comes to the bank to open an LLC, the officials concerned should say that please make sure that you have this ADR provision in your contract and promote to them that this is very essential. Now, we have been having a lot of complaints coming, both ICC Bangladesh and ICC China. When there is a complaint from ICC China, they come back to ICC Bangladesh to ask that if we can help them to settle the payment problems. Now, banks go by the UCP 600. Once the documents are in order, the payment is made. But number of occasions it has come to us that the importer has brought the goods cleared the goods from the port and brought it to its own warehouse. And then they find that the specifications that they wanted, the things that they wanted are not there in the consignment. So when they come to us and said, what can we do? I said, you cannot do anything now because the banks follow the documents. Now, if the documents are in order, the bank has already paid the payment. And now you are coming to me, nothing can be done. So if there was an ADR provision in the contract, then there is a way of going back to the client. Both the importers and exporters can then think of making settlements instead of going to the court. Number of occasions has happened that the client, suppose the importer from Bangladesh, when she sees that there is some problem, he goes to the court and puts an injunction on the payment. That creates a problem for the country also, and I'm sure the same situation is in China too. So we have to promote this ADR, having the ADR provision mediation in the contract. That is a must. That is very important for our banks, for our exporters and importers to be aware that this is very much needed, because once you go to the court, it's a lengthy procedure, it will take costly, it will time consuming, and you may not be able to settle. And at the end of the day, the client has to pay. The bank is not going to pay the damages. So we have to make sure that the clients are made aware of this problem, and they should go for ADR mediation provision in the contract. So as I said, that the chambers like Dhaka Chamber, BGMA, BKMA, BTMA, all these pharmaceutical associations, they can all join together with the Chinese partners and have the awareness building dialogue like this webinar, or maybe having a physical workshop once the pandemic is over. We can have the programs in Kunming, in Dhaka. The exporters and importers can come together, and the bankers can also facilitate this awareness building program. Just to recollect that in one time in 2015, we took a group of bankers, about 50 bankers, including 4 or 5 managing directors, to Kunming. We had a seminar on this very issue of this, the problems that we are facing on the payments scenario for both Chinese and for Bangladesh. So this kind of seminars can be again arranged in Kunming or in Dhaka for the exporters, and also the bankers can be there. Now, on the open account scenario, where in last 23 October, we arranged a global awareness program for this open account export transactions and the policy changes in the Bangladesh Bank, by the Bangladesh Bank. We had the opportunity of having the executive director of Bangladesh Bank, who is in charge of the foreign exchange dealing, and a number of managing directors and CEOs of commercial banks were also present. And all of them shared their views on open account. They also emphasized the need for ensuring that the contracts between buyers and sellers should have alternative dispute resolution clause for keeping the scope for negotiations mediation. This gives our less advantaged exporters the ability to access to solution. And I would also think that from our side, we will do everything that is possible to promote this ADR, inclusion of ADR clauses, mediation clauses in the contract. And whenever we do workshops for the bankers in Dhaka, we always tell them, even ICC Bangladesh Banking Commission Chairman, Mr. Rumee is always there. He is the CEO of BIAC, so he also emphasizes the need. We also tell the same thing, that you have to have ADR clause in your contract before you sign the contract and before you go to the bank for opening of LC. Open account is still not popular in Bangladesh, but globally it is coming. So in course of time in the future, open account is going to be the main way of doing business, export-import businesses. So I think we should promote this, and we should make them aware, and we also should pursue the central bank to inform the banks, or to impress upon the banks to make sure that the importers and exporters both have the clause in their contract for ADR and mediation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, thank you so much, Mr. Rahman. I think you have touched a very, very important 2 points out of your valuable discussions. One is given the fact that, whether it's an open account, whether it's an LC, unless and until the buyer-seller contract do not contain the ADR clause, we will not be able to get the full benefit of this off-the-court arbitration or the alternate dispute resolution protocol. So it's a very, very important thing. At the beginning, if I summarize your conversation, is to build up that awareness in collaboration with the ecosystem, which is the banks, ICC, the buyers, sellers, and through these webinars, through these visits, discussions, central banks, regulatory framework, liberalization also plays an important role. We do see, just to add, is the good number of special zones like export processing zones have come up. Additional 8 zones have come up. So some of these zones having the type A kind of clients and the companies can take the full benefit of this ADR and move ahead, as long as the buyer-seller contract is containing this specific clause in it. So thank you so much, sir. I'll move to our next speaker, Mr. Gang Jia Jun. Mr. Jun, it's over to you for your valuable, discussion. Mr. Jun.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Gang Jia Jun, currently working in China Minsheng Bank. I have great honor to speak here on behalf of the financial experts regarding open account trading dispute solving. Today, my topic are China Minsheng Bank promotes mediation as resolution for international letter of credit disputes. Here is my brief introduction. First,
Please allow me to introduce about my experience and specialty. I have both computer and financial experience, engaged in financial plan and investment banking commercial banks for years, proficient in management theory and practice of commercial banks, familiar with financial accounting standards and financial regulation policies of commercial banks, and excel in research and analysis of financial and industry in the context of macroeconomics. Serve as a head of security department and office of the board of directors in Hong Kong main board listed company from 2018 to 2019 with rich hands-on experience in capital operation of overseas listed companies, comprehensive launch of listed corporation governments and the regulation of the Stock Exchange of Hong Kong Limited, HKEX, and led several major equity M&A overseas financing projects with top international investment banks. Success stories are as follows. First, overseas syndicated loan project, lesser overseas syndicated loan project for Kunming Water Treatment Company Limited, which obtained approval from National Development and Reform Commission for a total amount of US dollar 600 million. Selected Morgan Stanley as a lead bank and organized the roadshows at domestic and foreign financial institutions to receive oversubscription from 22 well-known financial institutions abroad. The first batch of US dollar 300 million was in place, and the rate of labor at 270 BPS, much lower cost than the four equivalent terms in China. Secondly, M&A projects. Franchise acquisition for company in water and solid waste industries with 11 target projects. The total target amount about China yuan 1.5 billion and the annual revenue of China yuan 200 million. Summarized the overseas supervision procedure, calculated the project valuation, and reported to the board of directors for approval. Share acquisition for a company in the heat and power industry, the total target amount at China yuan 100 million and the annual revenue of China yuan 100 million. Constituted the transaction requirement disclosure in the Stock Exchange of Hong Kong, gave reasonable replies to inquire from the Stock Exchange of Hong Kong, and qualified in the final defense. Advanced China yuan 1.5 billion share acquisition in water industry of China with Development Bank of Singapore and China yuan 3 billion share acquisition in solid waste industry with China International Capital Corporation Limited. Proposed and carried forward the acquisition plan for acquiring a A-share listed company on the main board of the water sector, including valuation, pricing, tender offer, supervision, procedures of the Stock Exchange of Hong Kong and the China Security Regulation Commission, and the recruitment of the intermediary. Thirdly, continue collected transaction project. Regarding to the continual collected transaction between Kunming Water Treatment Company Limited and its controlling shareholders, Kunming Investment Company Limited, estimated annual deal size of China yuan 250 million during 2019 to 2021, recruited overseas independent financial and legal advisor, drafted annual general meeting circular and the letters for the independent financial advisor, communicated with The key issues the Stock Exchange of Hong Kong and obtained its approval. Such transactions originally conflict with listing rules, but were exempted by the Stock Exchange of Hong Kong after several rounds of arguments. Firstly, management of investors in relations and market value initiated 20 roadshows and reverse roadshows of overseas performance released to institutions like Morgan Stanley, China International Capital Corporation Limited, CICC, Haitong International, BOCOM International, CLSA, Zhongtai International, and Essence Securities hold the form of 20 and 19 embrace new opportunities in environment protection industry in new era. For financial institution, Morgan Stanley Haitong International Act, and investors at home and abroad, and organized the site survey and released the research report for famous overseas security companies. The company was awarded the most growing IPO listed company and excellence in investor relation by Yunnan Finance in 20 and 18. Now let's turn to vision of international financial cooperation with Bangladesh. China Minson Bank Corporation Limited is the first private joint stock bank in China. As one of the first pilot banks offering single window business in Yunnan province. Its international financial service involve international settlement and credit, overseas bond issue and fund return, easy access to global accounts, foreign exchange derivatives, value-added service for foreign currency deposit. Guided by the Belt and Road Initiative, China officially signed Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership (RCEP) on November the 15th, 2020, which is so far the largest free trade agreement reached in the world. Kunming branch of China Minson Bank Corporation Limited well actively provides a comprehensive financial service to foreign invested enterprise in China Yunnan pilot free trade zone, attracting more foreign re-owned enterprise to enter China Yunnan pilot free trade zone. Minson Bank is the only bank that can issue the letter of guarantee online through single window. At the moment, with our single window online, import and export enterprise can apply for the letter guarantee and credit online and issue the e-guarantee letter to customers, the beneficiary, based on the contract client's data recommended by single window. Our bank will provide to enterprise with qualified credit scoring, the credit-based products such as aggregate, tax levy guarantee, financial under credit insurance, and the tax refund financing, in which tax refund financing is applicable to area where the tax service push tax refund data to single window and integrate the one-stop online process of client access, credit line approval, loan withdrawal, and post-loan management. Till the end of the third quarter of 2020, Kunming branch of Minson Bank has opened a single window service for more than 30 import and export enterprise through single window. We achieved the tax payment of China Yuan 9 million for Yuntianhua Company Limited with the international business and over 50 exchange settlement for Yunnan Polite Trading. In dealing with regular import and export trade, and cross-border e-commerce business, we often encounter LC disputes, which mainly include customers' unreasonable refuse, clause defects, exchange control, buyer's refusal, different bank review opinions, and extra delay. We suggest enterprise involved should resolve LC disputes through mediation, such as reasonable avoid economic losses caused by such disputes. We strive to enhance mutual trust between business parties and improve the efficiency of business processing. We will also positively assist the import and export trading and cross-border e-commerce enterprise stationed in Kunming, China Yunnan Free Trade Zone to handle LC disputes through mediation. Specific measures include: firstly, foreign exchange process consultation. We keep close communication with the local foreign exchange office and the state administration of foreign exchange (SAFE) when foreign-related enterprise encounter LC dispute involving the clause defects or exchange control issue.
Mr. J, sorry to bother you. Since we are having a bit of time lag, any specific recommendation or suggestions you are making to help us to bring in the accelerated business between Bangladesh and China?
Yes, please wait for a moment. So there will be some questions, and these have some policies we want to explain to you. First is about that we will be for the overseas corporations banks, Minsen's want to, do some response to LC disputes, such as buyers' refusals, different bank review opinion, and acceptance delays. So I think in the future, you will introduce some about the foreign, banks to communication with Minsen Bank. They will be do some cooperation with the LC disputes solutions. So that is okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Jia Jun, for your valuable input. Basically, what I've gathered from here is we can see a good prospect for collaboration with the China Minsheng Bank and how we can drive certain agendas in collaboration. There are a lot of opportunities that we can see that Minsheng Bank has come up with, which could be acting as catalyst or a facilitator in terms of enhancing our open account business or our trade business between Bangladesh and China. So thank you very much for that. I'll now move to our fifth speaker, Mr. Mahbubur Rahman, Managing Director and CEO of Mutual Trust Bank. Mr. Rahman, over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm not an expert. I have just been asked to say something. The dignitaries, the panel speakers, guests, Assalamu alaikum, good afternoon. In fact, if you look at using open account trading for imports and exports between China and Bangladesh, the speed and timeliness is money to the commercial parties is very important. Because contractual buyers need timely delivery as per specification. In return to contractual sellers need timely payment as agreed. While in most of the cases, in normal circumstances, we see free flow of goods and payment happens on a regular basis, there are disagreements or disputes that pop up from time to time. And the disagreement or dispute is a particular transaction doesn't necessarily make pause of a continue another transaction between the parties. That means the impending cases in one transaction doesn't necessarily put an end to the business relationship. However, dispute should be resolved in the quickest possible time so the trade is facilitated with its own pride of the speed and timeliness. We have seen in some cases that there are some issues between two parties in Bangladesh as well as in China, and that also ultimately impacted the business of the bank, because I have seen the injunction is coming in either from China. So that is something at times create a lot of fear as well, because China is our largest trading partner. So we need to keep in mind that, yes, there could be dispute from case to cases, but that number is very insignificant. But we need to ensure that because of that particular case, our transaction should not get hampered. That's scary because of the fact, as I said, our largest trading partner. In terms of trading partners, I think our export to China is very insignificant in respect to the import that we made from China. We export about 800 to 900 million, and we export or import about 12 billion plus. And the exportable items are also not very significant. The jute products, plastic goods, rawhide and skins, frozen fish, crabs, live eel fish, sesame seeds, and cotton waste products. And Mr. Atharama has rightly said the open account transaction that has been given, that basically is for the exporters. That export discount, that has been recently been approved by Bangladesh Bank. And the trade method that used between China or overall, the legal framework is basically for import, industrial importers permitted to import under documentary collection without any sealing. And capital machinery is also permitted to import under documentary collection without any sealing. For commercial importers, the permission is, I think, up to 200,000 per year. For export, no such bar. However, EXP issuance indirectly put excessive burden on the bankers, which discourages bank to issue or allow issuing EXP under open account and documentary collection in general, especially for the SMEs. Now, using open account method, we need regulated permission to allow ADs to act as import factor by expanding the scope of AFI Circular 25 that was issued on 30th June 2020. In addition to introducing some of the supply chain products, including but not limited to availization, invoice discounting, etc. So with these possible changes, possibly import trade will slowly shift to open account from the traditional documentary credit. For export, the regulation is not prevailed, but it may take a bit time. The present status, if you look at it, despite the regulatory permission still exists, contract-based import, we have not seen many transactions under open account or documented collection. It is probably due to the lack of confidence of Chinese exporters over our importers. And also documentary credit is becoming customary trade uses for a long period of time. Henceforth, we don't want to get out of comfort zone. And less bargaining power of our importer, particularly big corporates who are frequently importing from same exporter for a long period of time. However, little regulatory adjustments such as allowing ADs to act as import factor may incentivize to our corporates to bargain with our Chinese counterpart. Despite Bangladeshi import from China is mainly conducted through documentary credit, it only deals with documents and ensure payments, guarantees, and compliant presentation. That is still possible for disputed disagreements, as I said, over quantity, quality, and many other issues as well. In respect of export, China importers may come forward with the international factoring wing to do open account trade, as Bangladesh is not ready to act export factor and under recent circular AFI 25. Now, what needs to be done? I think at chamber level, chamber may take initiative to create awareness among the members. There may be joint effort of all the members. It's very, very important because of the fact the sales contract are not standard. There is lack of regulatory framework. There is no doubt that inclusion of ADR clause in the sales contract will help. But this, I think for that, we need to make people aware of that as well. And inclusion of ADR clause in the sales contract is not seen very common nowadays. So as Mr. Atharama has rightly said, that it is also important that we need to incorporate that at the contract level. And also the national level, local regulations may make it mandatory for any commercial dispute must go to ADR process first. Without ADR resolution, no party can sue against each other in domestic commercial dispute. That is also possibly at a national level, we can look at it. Bangladesh also may ratify the United Nations Convention and contracts for the international sale of goods. So using ADR clause to strengthen open account trade, I think the law of contract between two countries is different. Therefore, at first, we need to know which governing law and forum will be used for commercial dispute. Each arbitration center generally has their own standard clause that need to be included in the contract. Otherwise, getting arbitration support from the desired center may not be possible. Therefore, it has to be defined. And enforceability of any arbitral award, particularly for a cross-border transaction in foreign jurisdiction, is always a daunting task without proper regulatory guidance regarding ADR in the respective country. So that's all from me. Thank you very much for having me and giving me the opportunity to say something, though I'm not an expert on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rahman. I think you have touched on some very critical points, which as bankers probably we often have a similar discussion. Just to wrap up on your points, you spoke about the imbalance between the export and import between Bangladesh, China, which is the reality, of course. Some of the suggestions that you have made, I think we should have a further discussion on that, because it makes a lot of sense to consider and have a conversation with the regulators or acting as the AD factors. That will be helpful. The lack of confidence between the importers and exporters of both countries probably have created some roadblocks. We can build up chamber level awareness, and as one of our speakers earlier was saying, bringing in other ecosystem participants into that can build up this awareness, so that the sales contracts, the ADR inclusion in the sales contract is absolutely critical if we want to make best use of it. National level oversight and the laws of these two countries, which prevails over and above this dispute, are very critical in driving the agenda that we are talking about. So thank you so much, Mr. Rahman, on that note. I think that's a key takeaway from our discussion today. So I will move to the next speaker. Our next speaker is Mr. Zhang, practicing lawyer at Anley Partners, Kunming. Mr. Zhang, over to you.
Hello. Good morning. Sorry, good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Zhang. Currently, I'm working in Anley Partners, China's lawyer. It's such an honor to speak here on behalf of a Chinese lawyer regarding open account trading dispute resolving. Firstly, please allow me to introduce a basic Chinese ADR system and its implement. I want to say I do my best to try to make it briefly as much as possible, because a few minutes, 20 minutes ago, Mr. Li Hu and Professor Napong has talked too much, so I don't want to make attending very boring. So I just make it very briefly. There are three common dispute resolve methodology in international commercial transaction, namely mediation, arbitration, and litigation. So it is same in China. Mediation and arbitration are both based on party autonomy and employed by the third party to resolve a dispute between the parties. What the difference between the arbitration and the mediation is that arbitration has a enforceable, but the mediation has no. But I want to say that in China now, many courts have required the pre-litigation mediation is a necessary procedure in China. So this is a new phenomenon in China. As above mentioned, that is no doubt that ADR, arbitration and mediation are often called as ADR. Above mentioned that is no doubt that ADR is the most important methodology used to solve international trading dispute in China. So I want to comparatively, arbitration is the most acceptable choice for most international commercial dispute, because in China there is already a very comprehensive system of international arbitration in China. I want to summarize the 5 advantages of arbitration here. The first strength of arbitration is its speediness and efficiency. The second advantage is its cross-border enforceability. The third advantage is the freedom and flexibility and professional arbitration that parties enjoying in arbitration can ensure the justice and equity of arbitral award. Contrary to litigation, the arbitrator should not be a professional judge. Arbitrator can, almost others, be lawyers, professional, scholars, experts, meaning that arbitrator can be chosen from any expertise field. And number 3, and number 4, confidential is also one of the advantages of arbitration in China. In China, participants may request arbitrary tribunal not to publish all information of a dispute, also not to have a trial in open. That should be noticed. Finally, the awards of arbitration are commonly recognized and enforced in foreign countries. China joined the New York Convention in 1987. An arbitrary award of PRC arbitration tribunal can be recognized and enforced in 160 members of the state under the New York Convention. This is all advantage of arbitration. I just wanted to emphasize again what Mr. Rahman said before, that arbitration is absolutely foundation of using arbitration to resolve a dispute. If there is no discourse, there is no procedure of arbitration. Now, let's turn to open account trading, OAT, between China and Bangladesh. OAT is a trade form based on the agreement between the two governments to set accounts through banks in international trade. It has an advantage of convenience, speediness, and low cost. It is reported that this kind of international trade settlement methodology has reached as high as 80% proportion among Western countries. However, open account trading has some inherent risks because it's a sale on credit in nature. It surely has high requirements on the buyer's credit and bank credit. As a result, it also leads to high risks that a dispute may involve in open account trading. So due to these high risks, open trading account is not very popular way in international commercial transaction in China. China and Bangladesh has signed an agreement in 1990 and agreed to use OTA to settle a payment between two countries. However, as I know, OTA is not very common recently. The main reason, with summary, seems like that companies in two countries cannot control the risk and the business reputation. Many importers and exporters prefer to use a letter of credit, remedies, collection, and other means of settlement because more people just trust the bank, not trust the company. Another important reason is that once a dispute of OTA occurs, parties will be very easy involved in many problems such as jurisdiction confusion, proof burden problem, government law, and high litigation costs, and so on. All this will become a great obstacle for export to seek legal remedy through litigation, and leads to the export often cannot get a judicial remedy in China, suffering sorrows, and finally lose confidence to OTA, which is also the main reason for the slow development of OTA between China and Bangladesh. Through above analysis, it is safe to conclude that if ADR clause, especially the arbitration clause, is written into the contract in advance and becomes a dispute resolve clause in OTA contract between China and Bangladesh, the arbitration advantage of a high credibility, convenience, and more professional can be used to match the convenience, speediness, and the low costs required by the OTA system. Using ADR will be very helpful with not only the dispute solving, conflicts balance, but also economy, but also the money loss reduce. Net parties get relief they deserve, and firstly build up a trust between the country. In my opinion, this is a very important way and means to promote development of OTA between China and Bangladesh. Based on the practice in China, as a lawyer, I have following suggestion. The first one is that regarding how to solve the problems that agreements in mediation cannot be enforced, that is, parties may reach agreement before arbitration procedure. That means conjunction, we can join the arbitration and mediation together. Then the participants jointly come to arbitration tribunal to make an arbitral award of or a consolidation settlement, which is in accordance with the terms of the settlement agreement. This is my first suggestion. A second suggestion is that the parties should be able to apply for freezing the property of other parties in their arbitration, so as to prevent a case from being unable to be forced after winning the case and ensure the parties can finally get a compensation and other relief. After accepting the application, the Chinese arbitration organization may transfer it to a court and freeze the assets of other party. This is a very useful measure for export business, foreign export business. Usually, after this assets are frozen, many parties will voluntarily choose to settle a case through mediation to avoid more compensation. So the dispute will be quickly terminate quickly and smoothly. This is my suggestion. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zhang, for your insightful views, particularly from the Chinese legal angle. We will now move to our last speaker, Ms. Jehrat Adib Chaudhry. If I may request Ms. Chaudhry to speak from the legal perspective, cross-border legal perspective from Bangladesh angle, and say her valuable inputs. Thanks. Over to you, Ms. Chaudhry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Karim. Am I audible?
Absolutely clear.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. A very good afternoon to all of you. I'm really humbled to be part of such a distinguished panel. As Bangladesh celebrates its 50th anniversary, I feel really proud being a Bangladeshi to see the significant growth that we have achieved till date. And China has always been a great partner, and this valued partnership has surely a great potential to flourish in a much more, wider perspective in coming days. The trade between Bangladesh and China will grow larger and larger, and the businesses should have the flexibility of using simpler and faster modes to complete their transaction. In international trade, open account trading is gaining popularity day by day because of being a less expensive payment method. Especially for importers, they are preferring open account trading for their better cash flow management, cost management. And from exporters' perspective, offering open credit terms makes them more attractive, and obviously it increases their chances of winning more businesses, market share, and customer loyalty. Thankfully, our central bank has realized the potential of open account trading, especially from a COVID scenario. I think that realization came, and they have allowed our Bangladeshi exporters to enter into sales contract based on open account trading terms by issuing this circular mid last year. And that's why definitely, as the other speakers have mentioned, this is a very timely discussion. And being the seventh speaker, I don't have much to add to the points. The earlier speakers have definitely covered most of the key points. However, I will try to highlight few points, especially from legal perspective. It is said that for an exporter, any sale is a gift until the payment is received. And for an importer, any payment is a donation unless the goods are received. So open account trading terms, by its nature, it's a risky option for the exporters. And definitely there are ways of reducing the payment risk, and Bangladesh Bank in its circular has tried to address those risks. However, from a legal perspective, when there's a contract or there's a relationship, the risk of disagreements are always there. And as a lawyer, I would always suggest that the parties enter into a detailed sales contracts addressing the key terms so that the disputes are limited because the terms and conditions are clearly written. Many has the belief that if you have a legal document and the problem is solved. Unfortunately, no. Lots of time we see that the parties, the contract they have signed is just a 2-page document, and maybe it's just a purchase order, so it does not cover all the right protection needed for the parties. And so when the parties get into a dispute, there is definitely going to be a lot of questions, issues, and including how to even handle the disputes. So it goes without saying, the court process, the litigation is always expensive and time consuming. And from an international trade perspective, this is going to be much more expensive. And for our exporters from Bangladesh, I would say that business margin is always shrinking, and an additional legal expense is obviously going to put an extra burden on them. So for the exporters point of view, it is very important that they are aware of all the options available, and especially consider ADR as an effective and efficient tool to resolve their disputes. I have seen the businesses always prefer to have control over their action and the decisions, and ADR exactly provides them with that option of deciding the process and also the outcome. And especially from an exporter offering an open account trading contract, ADR is very important, given that ADR is obviously much more less time consuming compared to litigation. And so if they have ADR in their contract, this is going to increase their chance of getting paid and not having a further delay because of the litigation and all. And also in most of the ADR processes, the parties have the opportunity to tell their side of the story. In a trial process, not necessarily that is always available. Plus, we have seen that ADR, like in mediation, parties can decide they can craft a resolution which is creative enough to resolve their disputes, which is not necessarily always available in a trial process. And also, as earlier speakers have also mentioned about the especially the ADR helps when there is a technical issue related disputes, and in arbitration you can choose a technical expert as your arbitrator. So these are the benefits that obviously helps ADR. And then one more issue when we are talking about how to strengthen the open account trading and the business relationship between Bangladesh and China, I think the ADR also offers as a great benefit here, because as a business, you always want to continue your business relationship. You look at the long-term opportunities, and a dispute in one issue should not stop your entire business. So from that perspective, ADR being less hostile and less adversarial, it helps parties to resolve dispute, at the same time continue their business relationship. And here, I think lawyers have a great role to play, because lawyers should advise on the alternative options available to the parties. And I think that's also a benefit for the lawyer, because the lawyer will be seen as a solver rather than just processing a dispute. So their lawyers should be advising the options to the businesses. And open account credit term, as I mentioned earlier, that puts a lot of risk on the exporters, and ADR is a very effective solution at that context. And when you are choosing an ADR, obviously the question comes whether you should go for an ad hoc ADR or an institutional ADR. I would say that because of the predictability of the overall process, and from an international context, especially institutional ADR is much more beneficial compared to ad hoc ADR options. And lastly, I want tips to the parties. I would suggest that normally we would always say that you do carry out a proper due diligence. Professor Ni Peng has also mentioned about due diligence importance. So when you are negotiating the sales contract, if the parties are not accepting a reasonable ADR clause, that it could be a signal. So both parties' true intention can be reflected through having ADR embedded in the contract, because that shows that the parties are intending for a long-term strong business relationship. So the key takeaways from my side would be that the importers, they should be signing a good detailed sales contract addressing their key terms and conditions, and they should consider an ADR clause to take better control of their dispute resolution. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chaudhary. I think a very, very insightful discussion, and quite a number of points that we have taken up. Just to summarize, we are conscious of the time. It's 1:35. We are, slightly shooting up our timeline. I think. Thank you all the panel speakers. It has been a fantastic discussion. So some key takeaways. I have tried to wrap it up, but just to wrap up, ADR and alternate dispute resolution arbitration process is definitely seems to be a more cost-effective methodology. Turnaround time of dispute resolution, having a good relationship with buyer and sellers is important to probably look into that area. Buyer-seller contracts standing as the core decision-making protocol within this. So the ADR clause and all other related contractual obligations will strengthen the process of utilizing open accounts or any other settlement protocols through banks, whether it's LC, whether it's open account or contracts. And most importantly, as Ms. Chaudhary last mentioned, the due diligence itself between the buyer and seller, and certain signals of how effectively they would like to run the ADR clause within the contract itself is an indicator about the intention or the interest of buyer and seller within this protocol. So thank you so much, Ms. Chaudhary. Thank you all the panelists. I will request the chairman of the board of Bangladesh International Arbitration Center, Mr. Mahbubur Rahman, to deliver his closing remarks. I think Mr. Rahman does not need any introduction, but I will still do that. Mr. Rahman is the current and founding chairman of BIAC, and he's in the board of eminent businessman of the country. He also was the president of International Chamber and Commerce Bangladesh, and the only arbitrator in Bangladesh for the China International Economic and Trade Arbitration Commission. Mr. Rahman is the chairman and the CEO of ETBL Holdings and the chairman of International Publications Limited, which is the a publisher of daily financial expresses. So, Mr. Rahman, we will kindly request you to share your closing remarks on the subject. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we do have Chairman Sir with us in the room, so I'm guessing he's just connecting his audio, so we will be hearing from him shortly.
Sure.
I mean, battery today, battery.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you
Good
so much for
afternoon.
joining.
I'm very sorry because I am a layman as far as the IT is concerned, and I couldn't get through my connections.
No
Anyway,
worries, sir. Yeah, over to you, sir.
So sorry
For
to keep
closing.
you waiting. Sorry to keep you waiting. And first of all, let me say thank you very much for organizing this, what is called the webinar. Webinar is also a new word to me because so long we heard about seminar, workshop, etc. Now it is webinar. We go through the wave. But anyway, I must say and acknowledge the BIAC has been organizing in this pandemic, and by now I think they have done more than 10 such webinar connecting national and international experts on the subject of arbitration and ADR. Thank you very much, Mr. Rumee Ali, our chief executive, for organizing such thing from time to time. And let me now say thank you, our Chinese counterpart, for joining us in this case. And to us, the Kunming and the province is what is called Yunnan. Yunnan province is more familiar to us because we have visited so many times to the Yunnan and Kunming, and more importantly, they are engaged with trade with Bangladesh in this case, and I'm very happy that our Chinese friends joined us in this case, and we are going to do something in the days to come in order to bring about a new horizon to our mutual trade, and more particularly with the system, the open account system that you are now trying to promote is definitely a very welcome sign. Respected Director of the International Investment and Trade Window of China, Yunnan Pilot, Free Trade Zone, China, Mrs. Zhang, Jingmei. Sometimes we do not pronounce the name correctly, but if I'm mistaken, please excuse me. And our special guest, Mr. Li Hu, the Vice Chairman of the China Maritime Arbitration Commission, distinguished panelists, discussants, and participants of today's webinar. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and a very good afternoon to each one of you. I am proud to be here with all the luminaries at an event which is jointly organized by Bangladesh International Arbitration Center, BIAC, and International Investment and Trade Services Window of China Yunnan Pilot Free Trade Zone. And the main functions include providing international commercial arbitration institutions with arbitrator information and cross-border investment promotion processes for Chinese and foreign enterprises, organizations, and individuals. I'm pleased to hear from experts from China and Bangladesh on the theme of today's webinar, using ADR clause to strengthen open account trading for imports and exports between China and Bangladesh. This is a very timely, in the sense, more importantly, that we are now passing through a difficult time. Distinguished participants, BIAC has reacted to the current global crisis of COVID-19 pandemic and the future new norms for including and handling of dispute resolution by quickly converting cases originally stated to be in person to their virtual, cost-effective and efficient system that allows cases to be arbitrated, mediated and negotiated through the use of video technology. Under the program, we have been holding a series of webinars during this COVID-19 crisis on a regular basis. As I have already mentioned, many parties have turned to us for information and guidelines. Information and guidance in the face of COVID-19 outbreak, and we are very conscious that these are challenging times for everyone. This is very, very important because unless we live up to the expectation of the people of the business, and at the same time, the need of the time, that is very important from that point of view. The COVID-19 pandemic has forced global trade to reach a standstill as countries struggle to provide for their own. Despite a global trade slump, China has recently opened new trade avenues for Bangladesh with lucrative incentives to stimulate trade. China has announced a tariff exemption for 97% of the Bangladeshi products, which has become effective from 1st July 2020. A total of 8,256 Bangladeshi products will come under the zero tariff treatment, and the exemption is perceived to boost trade between the two countries, as Bangladesh previously enjoyed this privilege for only 3,000 plus of the products. The China-Bangladesh relationship got stronger since 1976 and is on the verge of new transformation due to the new lofty policies from the Chinese authority. I must say, with all these changes and the new dimension added to the policies of these governments, or particularly the Chinese government in this case, that they have come forward to provide such incentive to Bangladeshi products, Bangladeshi business. And over the years, now that we have arrived at the 50 years of Bangladesh's independence, and our relationship, and more importantly, the trade, besides political, more importantly, the trade has reached a new height. The Chinese construction companies are having many innumerable projects in Bangladesh, which they have many of them they have already completed. Some of them are under completion, and many others are coming in. So from that point of view, I must say that our commercial and economic relationship with China has developed much more compared to our previous days. Besides that, Bangladesh and China always see eye to eye with the regional situation and development, both in the economic and political area, and we need to strengthen our cooperation in the days ahead, and it is very important from that point of view that we work hand in hand. The keys to selling under an open account are a high level confidence that the buyer will pay, a good understanding of external forces like country's economic situation or government on cause payment problems, and using proven trade financing techniques that mitigate risk of non-payment. ADR procedures can resolve issues including non-payment under open account trading, particularly where contracting parties from Bangladesh and China are involved in import and export between them. The aim of this webinar was to explore the existing features and future prospects of Sino-Bangladesh trade, particularly the opportunities under open account businesses for imports and exports, and how using an ADR clause can strengthen bilateral trade between the two fraternal countries. What we have learned from today's valuable deliberations by eminent speakers from China, pragmatic ADR landscape in both China and Bangladesh, with a view to making open account trading between the two nations more beneficial to our common interests. Many of you may know that the traditional method of payments in international trade, we use letters of credit. And at this point of time, of course, you will be a little surprised to know that only 20% of the letters of credit business in international transactions are being practiced by some developing countries or less developed countries. The rest of the world has gone for an open account trading system. So the risks are there, but benefits are also many more. From that point of view, it is important, and also in the dispute resolution mechanism also should be more visible for both importers and exporters. I'm particularly grateful to Zhang Jingmei, Director of International Investment and Trade Service of China Trade Zone, for joining us today and making this webinar a good big success. My special thanks to Mr. Li, who Vice Chairman of China Maritime Arbitration Commission, our special guest, for being with us. My sincere appreciation to Mr. Munazzir Shehmat Karim, Executive Director, Country Operations, Standard Chartered Bank of Bangladesh, for conducting the session so well. I also thank discussants from China and Bangladesh, Professor Mi Peng, Legal Advisor, First Yunnan Provincial Party Committee, Communist Party of China, Mr. Zhang Ziazun, Deputy General Manager, Minsheng Bank, Kunming, Mr. Yeji Jiong, practicing lawyer of Anli Partners, Kunming, Mr. Rizwan Rahman, President, Dhaka Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Ataur Rahman, Secretary General of the International Chamber of Commerce, Bangladesh, Sayyid Mahbubur Rahman, Managing Director and CEO of Mutual Trust Bank, and Mr. Zahrat Adib Chaudhry, Miss Zahrat Adib Chaudhry, for their valuable input at this webinar. My thanks to our CEO, Mr. Muhammad Rumee Ali, and BIAC team. Thank you for all the registered participants and viewers of this session. I must acknowledge that everyone in the BIAC, this Bangladesh International Arbitration Center, has been involved whenever we organize such seminar or webinar, because it is being a new institution, and we will be celebrating the 10th year of our existence in this year. And inshallah, we look forward that BIAC is going to have its position in the international arena, that it is one of the reliable destination for anyone having their arbitration, mediation, or conciliation here in Bangladesh, with much lesser cost that you may need to spend in Singapore, Hong Kong, London, Tokyo, anywhere. So that's very important from that point of view. And I look forward our more greater cooperation between Bangladesh and China. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, sir. It has been fantastic to hear from you and having your closing remarks. I think Miss Jingmei wanted to have a few words before we close up the session. So, Mr. Jingmei, Miss Jingmei, please, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We just appreciate all the tenders and hope to continue our good cooperation in the future. I know many Chinese entrepreneurs are very interested in China and Bangladesh trade and investment, and would like to know more about that. And we are here. We will have built a bridge, I guess. We and BIAC. We just set a bridge between people in both countries to improve understanding and prevent and reduce disputes through mediation and arbitration. We will continue to cooperate to expand the publicity of ADR. Thank you all. We hope next time to meet you again.
Thank you very much. I think I would request Ms. Rubaiya Ehsan Karishma to close the session.
Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a wonderful webinar today. Thank you so much for joining us. Our friends from China and in Bangladesh, thank you so much for supporting BIAC in all our events and initiatives. So for today, this has been a wonderful session, and we would like to see you all with us in our next events and endeavors. Please stay tuned, and we bid you goodbye for today, and we're signing out. Thank you so much.
Thank you.